Welcome, everybody, to our meeting today. And if you're new, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Or even if you're not new to the meeting, you can go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat to everyone. Tell them where you're from and why you're here. Any interesting thing you have on your genealogy research. I'm Jerry Carboni, as you know, and Wayne Blanchard. We do these Zoom genealogy meetings every couple of months with topics. So we're going to do a couple of new topics today. Well, let's start off on our agenda here. Announcements. Next weekend is Roots Tech, and it's completely free and online. And there are, for that entire weekend, starting on the 29th through the 2nd, there will be presentations on every possible topic of genealogy that you might be interested in, done by professionals and people who are really know their stuff. And they have Wayne, why don't you just take a minute and talk about the Find Your Ancestors?
Well, one of the things that I've been playing around with the last few days was they have a thing called Relatives at Root Tech. If you have connected yourself to the Family Search Family Tree online, when you click into the Relatives at Root Tech, it'll find people that you're related to, and you can find out how you're related. So you now you're limited. It's limited to, it only displays the first 300 of your relatives. I have something like, when I just looked a few minutes ago, I have over 22,000 relatives evidently that have signed into Roots Tech.
They're all coming for dinner tonight, Wayne.
Yeah, you can only the first 300 can come. Anyway, it's kind of fun to play around with. You can see how you're related. It'll create a chart, show you where how you and your relative, which common ancestor you have, and how you descend from that ancestor, and how the other person does too. So anyway, it's kind of fun to play around with. And basically I was using it because there are a few kind of brick walls, and if I find one that's descended from a couple that I've been trying to figure out how, I'm always hoping that somebody else has got the answer. So I've tried to contact people in the past through, you can contact them through Family Search. So anyway, it's fun to play around with, and it's possible to do some additional research that way.
Yeah, so that's next week. And if you already have a Family Search account, I think you can just log into that when you go to the Roots Tech website, and you're in, right, Wayne?
I think you actually have to tell it that you want to be in Roots Tech, but you can you can use the Family Search sign-in to do that.
And you can preview all the sessions and then create your own schedule, so that you'll know what you want to watch, and so you don't get you don't duplicate it at certain times. So it'll be it's really fun to do. So a couple of other things that we've come across, new things that Family Search now is offering free 20-minute virtual consultations, genealogical consultations. So if you go to that link on the agenda, that you can go directly to that. Of course, you probably have to use your be logged in as well to schedule that. I've not done it, but so if anyone decides to do it, send us an email to our email, and we can get some idea about how those work out. Chronicling America, they've been updating their site. they're migrating to a new site. In fact, hopefully more user friendly. But these are some new newspapers that have been put online, and they're New Hampshire. So you can see they go back to 1756, and you'll be able to find those by going to the Chronicling America website. Okay, so we'll get going on our presentations today, and then we'll have a general genealogy discussion afterwards. There were a couple of questions in the in people registered, and we can have those asked by those people if they're here. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and address them. And then we've already set up our next meeting for Saturday, May 18th. It won't be on the first Saturday. I'm not available, but this is 18th, and one of our regular members, Michael Bosworth, will be providing some findings on the research of his paternal grandfather. And Michael, you're here today, right? I think I saw him in the maybe he's muted. Oh, okay, good. That's accurate, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's great, and we want to encourage people. If you want to talk about your research, let us know, because otherwise you have to hear me and Wayne every couple of months, and and we'd like to hear from you as well. And just to let you know, we're recording, and it will be going up on our YouTube site. Just if you don't want to be recognized, you can turn off your video, rename yourself. And it's probably good that everybody mute themselves during the presentation so external noise doesn't come into play. And I guess that's about it. So I'm going to stop the share and let Wayne
Okay.
do the rest.
Okay, so I am certainly not an expert on this, but what got me started was I watched I participated in like a webinar on the way people were using artificial intelligence and genealogy. So I got interested to try it out for myself. So anyway, with that disclaimer, in thinking about it, almost exactly 2 years ago now, it was like April of 2022, when the 1950 census was released. Ancestry, Family Search, National Archives, they'd created this artificial intelligence software that could read the handwriting of all of the 1950 documents, transcribe them, and then which made them searchable. And I don't know, some of you may have participated in that. After that, the task was to kind of go through and verify what the AI software did, but it enabled people to see things and find things, within a day or two of it being released versus, 3 or 4 months later. So that was kind of a behind the scenes use of AI. So obviously the big change now is that it's being incorporated into various software. So like Ancestry and MyHeritage particularly. So this is just an example of one of the things that's kind of nice about this is that it does still have a little warning, usually in smaller print. So this is like looking at a city directory in Ancestry, and it does emphasize the fact that the information that they're presenting there was found using a combination of machine learning, optical character recognition, in order to get the text out of the image. And of course, a city directory is pretty much all text. So so I think it's good that they still provide some, reminders that you should always check it back with the original, in terms of not just trusting what the AI software has done. Another new feature in Ancestry, if you go into the life story section on a person's profile, there's these links where it will allow you to ask the Ancestry AI for more information. So in this case, I was able to click and say, well, so what was Greenfield, New Hampshire like in 1877? And it does provide a few facts, the population, kind of a general description. It's not specific probably to Greenfield, but that part of New Hampshire, Monadnock region in New Hampshire. And then it gives you sorry about that. It gives you kind of an overview of what life might have been like, that it's mostly a farming community in 1877. Education would have been highly valued. Kids were expected to be in school. The town had a public library and so forth. So it does try to give you a little bit background information about what the place was like. Yeah, they have a variety of questions that are set up. Where they're prompting you, do you want to know more about this? Like, what would he have done for entertainment? What were the demographics? What was it like working as a lumber dealer? What kind of foods might he have eaten? Again, it's fairly general in terms of, it can't, obviously there's no way to know specifically the answers to those questions about a particular person, but they can give you kind of general overview of what life was like at that point. So that's kind of an interesting little feature that they're adding. I guess, obviously the biggest change since 2022 is that the tools are now in our own hands versus in the hands of businesses and so forth. So I've spent some time playing around with ChatGPT. Again, a reminder that it's a human-like conversation. It's what they call a large language model. It can assist with some tasks, things like, writing an email, writing an essay. Evidently, it can even do computer code, though I don't know anything really about that part of it. The ChatGPT, the GPT stands for a generative pre-trained transformer. So in other words, they've trained this, and I guess it's one of the biggest in the sense that it's been trained on a wide variety of information that's been fed into it. So this one I've been playing around with a little bit. So there are certainly some cautions. First of all, it's not connected to the internet, so it can use the data that you give it, that you are, that it are, and the data that it already has. But you're not going to be able to just say, oh, create a family tree for me, that kind of thing. It has no way, of course, to get into websites like Ancestry because it's a paywall, or get into Family Search because you need to be able to log into it. So it can't go through and search those things. Obviously, within those websites, they can use artificial intelligence on their own products, but an outside product like this is not going to be able to search through there. I mean, and I've run across this and playing around with it. It can produce inaccurate information. And in some cases, if it doesn't know it, it might just make stuff up. So you can use it as a tool, but you have to check what it says. Basically, is what it comes down to. So it's not useful in finding any new data. And I'm using the free version. I don't know that there is a paid version that's supposedly more powerful. Costs $20 a month though, and so I was not into it that much that I wanted to pay $20 a month for it. But it is fun to play around with. So the key thing that you need to do is to actually create a prompt, tell the chat GPT what it is you want it to do. And the more specific you are about what you want, the better your results are. So first of all, is to tell it what role you want it to take. And you need to type that right into the prompt, basically. So, and of course I was interested in genealogy. So I said, act as if you're a genealogist and tell, and then I would give it various things that I want it to do. So the first step is define the role, then tell it what you want it to do, what task you want it to do. You want it to write something, you want it to analyze it, or summarize the information that you've given it. Then you should also tell it what format you want, how do you want the information? How do you want it back? Do you want it just a list? Do you want it to, in a form of a story, a poem, bullet points, and so on. It helps to restrict it. Tell it what you want to leave in or add out, leave out. It's particularly useful if you give it a bunch of data, like say 4 or 5 census records on a family. You might want to tell it to restrict itself to the information you've given it. In other words, don't add anything else in. That type of thing. That's what I mean by limits. And then you can take the output and ask it to make changes. Ask it to put the results in a different form. It's kind of. I'll give you some examples of that in a minute. The big caution that I've got out of doing this was to avoid putting any personal information in the prompt. Most of these things are still, we're basically the guinea pigs for using this stuff. So you don't want to put a lot of personal information in there that could be reviewed by somebody else. So as an example, I'd say, as a genealogist, write an email asking a DNA match for any information about whatever ancestor you're trying to do, that we have as a common ancestor. I mean, that's there are times, like Ancestry will tell you, if you match, if you have somebody in your family tree that matches your DNA match, and they also have a family tree, it'll tell you who the common ancestor is. So I use that sometimes just to try to find out what they know about the person versus what I know. So I could write an email as an example. Here's another one that I found online. There's a Facebook group called Genealogy and AI. So I thought this was a pretty well written prompt. The role here, the person is asking chat to act as a genealogical assistant. The task is to organize the notes and point out any conflicting facts, that you have given it. The format is just to write a concise summary. And the limits are not to repeat data and to not give any additional data that is not in the notes. Again, Chat GPT can make stuff up. If it doesn't have anything, it can make it up. So if you limit it to what you've given it, the data that you've given it, you probably get more accurate results. So here's this is an example of what I did. So I went into Ancestry, clicked on several census records on Charles Blanchard. And if you notice here on the example that I have, that 1910 census, somebody looked at it and thought his name was Chester. And Chat GPT can actually work with that if you tell it, that this is really Charles, not Chester. So anyway, what you want to do in Ancestry, as an example, you open the record up, click on View Record, and then just literally just copy and paste that information into Chat GPT. And I did that several times. I went through several different, I forget which ones that I have there, but like 1910, 1920, and so forth. So I created a prompt like this: acting as a genealogist, use the information below from vital records and census to create a register style entry for Charles William Blanchard. And then after I created that prompt, I just literally just copied and pasted the information from, here it is, 1920, and I mean 1900, 1910, 1920, and the person's death record. So the results. So it did make a report of his life. It really didn't seem to know the register style format, but it was able to create, as you see here, his name, his birth date, his parents, his marriage, his occupation using each of the census years, where he lived in each of those years, and when he died. So kind of a basic summary of data that we look for, obviously, in putting together a family tree. All right, so now the kind of interesting thing with this is that you can, once you've done the first information, you can ask it to change things using the same information. So I said, using the information that you already have, that I've already given you, create a family group chart. So not a particularly great looking chart, but it does have some of the information there. I mean, Charles is there, his wife Clarissa is there. It has the marriage date. And down at the bottom, it does list children, although they only had 4 children: John, Etta, May, and Laura. And Walter was actually a nephew. So it didn't make that distinction in trying to create this chart. I was also a little disappointed that it really couldn't, it didn't do any math automatically. Maybe if I'd asked it to do that, it would have been able to do it. But, just as an example, the son John over here, it says 1 to 21 because in 1900 he was 1, and in 1920 he was 21. Instead of doing the math, and it could have come up with at least an approximate birth year of 1899. I mean, his actual birth date is the 14th of July, 1898. But, I would have thought that given the information that you could calculate a rough birth year, but it didn't do that. Now, again, using the same information, I asked it to write a narrative. And again, I was trying to press it to see if it could do something in register style. It doesn't, but it did. This was, in my mind, the most accurate narrative. And as the information in there seems to be pretty accurate from what I know about, what I know about the family. There's some misspellings, like you know, for example, up here, her name was Etta Savage, and it came up with Etta Salaga. You know, so in other words, even you can't trust it completely. It can kind of give you a nice starting point, but then you really want to go through and edit and make sure that the information in there is correct. If it's picking up stuff out of the census records about where he lived, what he did, how many people were in the family. It did get it correct down here. Let's say in 1920, for example, it listed the 4 children, and it did note that Walter was his nephew. So it got that part. That part was accurate in this format. And again, I didn't change anything. All I asked it to do is I'm just refining what or asking it to kind of reinterpret the data that I gave it. Anyway, it made it created a bit of an interesting narrative about it. Again, you have to go back and check the facts because it doesn't always get those correct. Again, a reminder here, I mean, ChatGPT is working with words. It's not going to be able to do much with facts. You know, if it's pressed, it'll probably make up the facts. There was a case in the news not too long ago about some lawyers who were just used ChatGPT to create their brief, I guess it is, for the court, and ChatGPT created its own references that didn't match anything with the existing court cases. So they got in a bit of trouble for using that. So you don't want to trust it for those kinds of things. So again, a reminder, it does something, but it can't think. It can extract information. It can do some calculations if you tell it what you want it to do. It can translate things. It can transcribe them. You have to consider it's a tool, like an assistant, but you would need to just verify if what it's created is how accurate it is. So shifting gears here a little bit, MyHeritage is creating a lot of tools based using AI. And just give you a quick little view of those. One's called the Record Finder, and then there's the Auto Data and the Biography. So on the main page on MyHeritage, it's under research. You get this AI Record Finder. You type in you type in a prompt telling it what you want it to find or who you want it to find information about. So in this case, it's the same person I've been using here. It tends to search for that same person in other users' family trees. That comes up most frequently. But in this case, it did come up with a marriage record, and it did find the 1900 census record. The more information you give it, the greater the possibility of finding records that are useful to you. I tried to add some information, and then I got this result. I think the one on the left, is probably coming out of the family tree that I have on MyHeritage. But it did find the gravestone. Again, looking at in this case on the family search family tree, and it did find it still had the New Hampshire marriage record. So it somewhat useful, I guess. In this case, it found things that could be useful. I deliberately picked. He used to go by Will, actually. I picked him because I already knew I had a lot of information about him, so I could kind of check on what what the AI was finding. Now the photo data, all you have to do here is upload a photo on the MyHeritage website. And if you don't give it a date of when the photo was taken, it will estimate a date. So I actually found these portraits I'm pretty sure I was on Ancestry, actually. Found it in, I was just doing additional searches on him and came up with these portraits that I'd never seen before. I had other pictures of them, but they were more snapshots versus more formal portraits. So the estimated date is 1932. If you click into that, it gives you what it thinks is, it has a confidence level of 77%, and the average error plus or minus 6 years from 1932. So I think it was, that part was probably accurate. It was, that photo was probably taken before 1932. But with, the average error being plus or minus 6 years, it's probably, it's the right time period. So this happens automatically on MyHeritage. If you haven't already entered a date, it gives you the estimate, and then you just click on the button if you want to see what the confidence level is and the average error. And then it gives you a chance to, if you want to accept that, you can save it. I didn't, because I think the date was probably before 1932, but like I said, it seemed close. All right, another new tool in a profile of a person. There's this thing called Create an AI Biography. Now you can choose here when you open this up. If you choose standard, it uses only the information that's in the tree profile. Enhanced basically adds details for matching records and additional information from the web. Very similar to what Ancestry was doing that we looked at a few minutes ago. So just information about what's going on here. So it's powered by OpenAI, which is the same company that's doing the Chat GPT. It allows you to create a biography about a deceased person based on data in the MyHeritage's own records. And then they can add some information if you ask for it, the historical context, surname origins, where the surname came from. And then using OpenAI, and again, there's the disclaimer that the accuracy cannot be guaranteed. So, but anyway, this is what the results look like. It pulled up pictures that I already had in there. It kind of gives you the family group chart over here on the left. Parents, siblings, wife, and children. It does create a narrative, and it's several pages long. I mean, well, like 4 pages. The other thing that kind of liked about this was that it looked for consistency problems. So it was saying, one source says this, another source says that. So it highlights things that you might want to pay attention to. So I pulled this information up off of my own site on MyHeritage, and it also looked at the Family Search Family Tree collection that MyHeritage also uses. So anyway, again, kind of an interesting narrative. about a person. So, so you can use ChatGPT especially if you have the enhanced version or whatever they call it, the paid version. I think you can actually just upload an image and it will do the conversion for you. And what I'm going through next is a way to work around that and use the free version. So I have here, I was starting with an obituary. There's a death notice and an obituary for, this is Will's wife, Clarissa. So I went online and used this online text converter. You can converting the image to text. There's only 3 simple steps here. You have to upload the image that you have. You tell it what language you want it in, and then you click on convert. Oh well, this just it needs to be a upload an image, or you can use a PDF document. It's the limitation is that the file size can only be 15 megabytes. So, well, I didn't have any trouble with that newspaper clipping. Select the language and the format that you want. You can choose like Microsoft or just plain text. And then after the conversion, you can download it into an editable file. So when I converted the text, this is what it looked like. And which looks like kind of a real mess. So the next thing was to take that, just literally just copy that text, paste it in, and then I asked ChatGPT to just clean up the text for an obituary on Clarissa Blanchard. And so first of all, it was a nicer format, a little space in there and it did try to correct it. It corrected some of the gobbledygook words that were in there and gave us some, a more readable version of it. And however, there's still errors. It got, for example, a couple of the daughters. We got Henrietta correctly, we got May correctly, but her name is Laura, and her last name is not Martin. Her married name is not Martin. It was it couldn't do much with the name of the funeral home because the conversion itself didn't give you much to go on. So anyway, oh, and the other thing that it did, because I gave it not just strictly the obituary, but also the death notice, it combined the information with the person, another person who also had a death notice there, because it says her son, Paul Gerard, preceded her in death. Well, he's not her son. His death notice was just underneath hers in the newspaper. And then it kind of messed up the names of her parents. Gave them the last name of Blanchard, whereas their last name was really Dunbar. So there were some errors there to look for. I tried again with just the obituary, and this time the conversion to text was a little better. I mean, this is just the raw text. But it took, again, I took just this OCR text, put that into ChatGPT, and then it did come up with a better, more readable version of what the obituary says. Still problems. This is not the name of that lodge, for example. We still have a problem gave her a different name this time. Instead of Lisa, it's Laura instead of Laura. So still some problems with it, but cleaned it up pretty good. Then I tried to do a direct comparison to see where, where there were some problems. Again, what else did I discover in there? Well, it was able to do a pretty good job with it, but not not totally accurate, I guess is the way to leave it. And again, this time it changed the name of her. That she was the daughter of a couple named Martin, and it was again, the Dunbar is their name. So it added a few things in there that, added a little more confusion to the whole thing. I mean, Harriet, her maiden name would have been Hart. So there were still some problems with it. So anyway, I took the corrected obituary, and then the new prompt was, acting as a professional genealogist, extract the relationships of the people from the following obituary and correct for spelling and summarize. So this time it had the actual correct information, and then just made kind of bullet points here about what was in the obituary, and then at the end made a summary. So it does really well if you've given it exact information and you tell it, you basically, if you tell it exactly what you want it to do, it can do it and be pretty accurate. Just another example. This is on the website newspapers.com. So newspapers.com automatically does this, uses AI to extract information from an obituary. So here's the obituary, and this is what newspaper.com pulls out. So there, again, it does give you a little warning down at the bottom that this was done by a computer, and it's not accurate. You really should double check against the original. Couple of the problems that it had, it couldn't analyze the information and give a death date. The obituary did not give a date, but it says she died on Thursday, and this was published on a Friday, and it has that date in there. It was unable to get the name of his wife, probably because in the newspaper it was split, it was hyphenated to fit in the column. And so it substituted things, like Delia Mar Jane Bull versus Delilah Marble. So anyway, it helpful, but again, has to be checked. Just some other examples of AI. Google Translate, I found really helpful, since I've attempted to study French, for example, but I certainly am no good at either speaking or reading it really at this stage of my life. So anyway, here's a death notice, and from what I can tell, Google does a good job translating that into English. Of course, it's pretty short. It's pretty easy to do. I forget how many languages, but there's a pretty good variety of languages that Google Translate can deal with. ChatGPT can also do it. I tell it to act as a translator, translate the following text into English, gave it the text. and then it came up with basically the same information that Google had in its thing. Just another example. I just, plugged in the text in French, and it gave me the text in English pretty much instantly. So within that last one, I asked, it didn't give a birth date, so but it did say how long he lived. 83 years, so many months and 7 days. So this is what ChatGPT came up with. It calculated a date and gave me all the steps. So it says, we'll calculate it as follows. We subtract 83 years and we get 1780. We subtract 2 months and 7 days, so we get 1863. And then we subtract the months, and leaving us with 17. And so 17th of April, 1780. So it can do, it can do it, and it actually shows its work instead of just giving you the date. Okay, I wanted to include this. This is Google's version of Google's AI. It's called Gemini. This is part of the terms of service. So you must be 18, and I thought I just wanted to show it to give you some of the cautions about using it. So it collects the conversations related to your usage of it, and so there's going to be information about your location, your feedback that you give it. It stores the information, which I guess you can change. I've not played around with it enough to see, but it'll store it for 18 months, but you can shorten that or lengthen it. As with the others, it's a work in progress. So they're using basically our usage of the site to help them improve their product. It does emphasize here that human reviewers are going to read and process your conversations. I think they try to extract identifying details, but it does in very bold print. It says, don't enter any confidential information in the conversations or any data you wouldn't want a reviewer to see. So I thought that was pretty good that they emphasized that, and it probably applies to any of these other AI products. You can adjust some of the settings and tools about data and privacy. Just a couple of images of the screens. So this is what the Gemini looks like when you open it up. It throws out some examples of things that you can ask it. It really is kind of fascinating, actually. You can just type what you want to see for an image, and it will create the image. Like this one here, create a future image of a car, futuristic image of a car. It will do that for you. These tools are very good at making stuff up, so it loves doing that kind of thing, I think. Microsoft also has its AI. It's called Copilot. I didn't play around a lot with that, but I just wanted to let you know. There's a lot of them out there now. This will be included in the. I put them in the presentation here just so that you could refer back to it if you want to. Information about MyHeritage and about their tools. There are ways to have AI create a GEDCOM file so that you could upload that into a genealogy software. I did not play around with that part of it. I don't know. It just seemed like that was too risky. I didn't want to put in a whole bunch of bad information. There are other websites talking about how to explore the use of AI with genealogy. And there's, as I mentioned before, there's a Facebook page of genealogy and AI. There's probably a lot more out there that I don't know about. This is just, like I said, just a summary of where to go if you want to play around with some of these. I spent most of my time using the Chat GPT, so that was the one I was wanted to illustrate here. But I just wanted to make sure people knew that there are others, and they may do other things that the Chat GPT can't do. Just the couple of videos that I looked at that I thought were pretty good. One on American ancestors, one on creating how to create good prompts. This one on the bottom here is I looked at he did a webinar that I looked at, and he's also doing it again on Roots Tech on March 1st at 6:30 Eastern time. So if you want to check out some of those videos for yourself. And then I asked Chat GPT to kind of summarize it. And it came up with this little poem for us that it can be quite grand, but leaving gaps that we don't understand. So at that, I guess I'll close out this part and stop the share. So I don't know, any
We have
any
thank you,
questions
Wayne.
that we
That's
It was
great.
wonderful, Wayne. It really was a great introduction to
Oh, well,
AI
thanks.
and what to be aware of. Thank you.
People can unmute themselves if they would like. There is one question in the chat, Wayne. Do you know if you use the AI supported information, is there some kind of tag that gets associated with that data that you save?
I don't believe so at this point. I know that's certainly in the news a lot these days, especially with video and images, where companies are trying to anything created with AI will have a watermark in it that says it's produced by artificial intelligence. But any of the stuff that I was doing, I didn't see anything there that. I mean, literally, you could just take what's in the chat and copy and paste it and use it, I guess. It can't be. It's interesting. I guess there have been a couple of court cases where AI produced literature can't be copyrighted because it's not produced by a human. So there is that in there. Although I suspect that may be tested further. It's all pretty new.
Well, that was one of the big issues in the most recent, screenwriters strike in the movie industry about AI.
Yeah, they want to protect their own work.
Yeah, their intellectual property.
Yeah.
We have another question in the chat, but it's not directly related to AI, so we could ask it now, or we could wait. But what resources are you aware of for Canadian ancestry records?
Canadian. Well, French Canadian, I have run into some, but off the top of my head, I can't tell you I believe there's a library in Montreal that has a lot of good resources for, French Canadian ancestry. And there are certainly genealogy groups, societies, French Canadian ancestry, with dealing with French Canadian ancestry. I haven't had to do that in a while. I had some people come into the library and ask me about it, and we looked up. We were able to find some online resources, all in French, of course. So that's where using some of these translation tools can into play unless you're fluent in French. As for the rest of Canada, I'm not so sure. I haven't had anybody come in and ask questions about that. They've been mostly people with French Canadian ancestry, get migrated down into New England or New York.
I've had some experience. I've had a client who was researching records in Manitoba, so I had to learn the Canadian Archives, National Archives system, which has a lot of records digitized and available. And also, what I found helpful were the local genealogy societies in the provinces. There was one in Manitoba that actually did some research for me and came back with records. Yeah, and the only other thing I would mention is that both Ancestry and Family Search do have collections of Canadian records. And the most recent, just this year, not this year, but last year, the 1931 Canadian Census was released, which is available on either of those sites, as well as the Canadian National Archives site. So that's how I would kind of approach it. The Vermont Genealogy Library, I think it's called, in where is it? Outside of Burlington, Colchester, I believe, does have an emphasis on French Canadian research, and they have a whole program. I don't know how much it costs now. I was a member for a while. It might be $10 or $20 a year. Don't quote me on that, but they have webinars and people there who are really good French Canadian researchers. So that's another possibility. So I hope
Ancestry, by the way, Ancestry is available at both the Rockingham Library and the Brooks Library, if you're in the area.
That's right.
And they have that library edition would have Canadian records. So I only subscribe to the US version of it because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but I go to the library if I need something outside the US.
Yeah, Chip has just posted in the chat 11 resources and several other PDFs on Canadian research. So people can download that from the chat if you'd like and save it to your computer. And perhaps we'll do that as well and put it up in our folder on our Google Drive, so people can have access to that, and they'll be there for a long time, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. So if there aren't any more questions, we can go into my presentation. Okay. So for the next approximately half hour, we're going to take on the massive David Rumsey Map Collection at Stanford University. And I'm going to do a little something different. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint, which only has 11 or 12 slides, just to be a preview to what I'm going to show online at the actual website. So you'll get this over again once I go back online to the David Rumsey website, so we can actually look at some of the results of the search. So, okay, so what we are going to cover today, we're going to do, well, who is David Rumsey? And why does he have this huge map collection? We'll do an overview of the website, go through some of the menu options that are there. The types of maps that can be found on this massive collection, how you can actually register and save the maps that you find into a collection, so you don't have to redo the search next time you come But you can also export maps at different sizes and resolutions, and that's another way you can save your maps from the collection. The Luna Viewer is the way that maps are presented and viewed on the David Rumsey site. It's a very robust and powerful tool, and you'll see how that works. And we'll do some searching for specific maps. So I'll show you how that works. And then we'll actually do browsing for maps and take a look at the georeferencer, which is a powerful tool of superimposition of historic maps on current day maps. So first thing is he's a retired real estate developer and map collector. He's acquired maps over the past 30 years since he was a boy. He donated 150,000 maps to Stanford in 2016. There are 129,000 that have been digitized for the collection, so there's still quite a few that haven't, and it's an incredible place. If you go to the site, go ahead and do a tour of the actual map collection because it's really, really cool. And he says, I like modern maps, I like old maps, and that's what. So he really does see how they're art, science, and history. And why Stanford? And he likes it because Stanford has committed resources to making them available and not just put them away in a collection that people can't really see. So it's really been a real boon to everybody interested in maps, especially genealogists, because they do have large amounts of genealogical information on them. So this is what we're going to look at from the website. And the first thing you'll see, there's a lot there, and one can get lost in it. And I've been lost several times over my looking at this, and so hopefully I don't get too lost today because there's a lot here. So we're going to be looking at, we're going to view the collection. We're also going to take a look at the Luna Viewer, the georeferencer software, and we're going to browse by categories: what, where, who, and when. And that will be it. The types of maps we'll look at are, well, these are the types of maps that you can find in the Rumsey collection that would be of interest to genealogists. And there are a lot more that may not be interest to genealogists, but you'll find them interesting no matter what. And so we'll take a look at property maps, or an example of a property map, how railroad maps can aid in migration patterns. Sorry, I got a misspelling there. I'll fix that. And some of the other types of maps are population, historical statistics, and other ways of viewing geographic information. We'll take a look at how you can log in and register so you can save your maps. And we'll look more closely at the Luna Viewer. We'll do first a search for a specific map, but then we'll take a look at how the Luna Viewer can be used. And this is where we'll use it to find a specific map. And once we find a map, how it can be used in the georeferencer. Not all the maps have been georeferenced, but a large percentage of them have. And it'll show you how that works. We'll do a random browse so you can see how you can drill down by the area of map that you're looking at. So they have newspaper maps, imaginary maps, space maps. So you can see it has the entire universe of maps. We'll look at searching by facets, and facets are various topics of what, where, who, and when that you can then delimit by as you're doing your search. And again, we'll look at ownership, railroads, and statistical from this point of view. And then an enhancement that's been done to the maps. These are the georeference maps. They use a machine learning tool similar to what I'm sure the AI that Wayne was talking about, to collect the text on maps. So there's what's called the metadata, or how maps are cataloged, which gives them points of access to the map, but also the text that are just written on the maps themselves at the time the maps are created. And the map curator goes through those and assembles them, and we'll do a quick search on that to show you how that actually works. And then we'll look at the georeferencer in a little bit more detail. And this is the some of the resources that I've consulted, and that will be available to you on the Google Share Drive when we upload our presentation. So going to go ahead and stop that share, and then I'm going to do another share, and we're going to go to the okay. So now we're looking at the actual website when you go to the David Rumsey website, and this is the first page you'll see. And of course, I mean, these are some of the text searches that they've done for on the images, so you can sort of give you a little bit of that. And again, you can get lost really quickly. So we'll try to stay focused here. The first thing I want to do is show you how the browse feature works in the front page. So if we go right here and click on browse, hopefully that changed for everybody. Wayne, can you confirm that the website changed for me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good.
Right, we can see
All
that.
right, great. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that worked. So here it's just gone through that, and it's actually found 129,000 maps, and you're looking at the results. The first thing I want to note is that up here, the little gear, when you click on that gear, you can change the way that you look at them. So it's giving me 50 thumbnails a page. I'm looking at the medium, but if I wanted to change it to a small, I could click on that, and it should bring smaller thumbnails into view. And of course, when you click on that thumbnail, it will enlarge it as well. The other thing is you can use a different theme. I'm not going to mess around with that right now. So these are thumbnails of the maps, 129,000 showing 50. Along the left side here, you can start refining. So you can start refining by what, you can refine by where, and there's more under here. As you can see, the United States in itself, of our primary interest, has 52,000. You can also refine by who. So if you want to find a particular publisher or author of the maps, you can do that. And then you can refine by when, which is really important to genealogists, because we're usually interested in location, where, and when, and so you can do that as well. So that's the first step. So let's do a search, and we go up here to the search bar, and one of the other things that you can do, it has all the various Boolean commands. So you can truncate by using the asterisk. You can use question marks to replace wildcards in the title. You can use the and or operators. So you could do Brattleboro and something else, which will winnow out. And I think these are more helpful when you have broader searches. Brattleboro, is going to have limits on what the number of maps are. So let's start with that. And so what we do is we come up with 79 maps that are fields similar to Brattleboro with an asterisk, meaning Brattleboro or Brattleboro, Brough, as it was sometimes spelled. in the early days. And so we have maps here. There's Vermont of 13. There are 10 that relate to Brattleboro. You have all of the publishers on this side, and you have 3 particular time periods of maps. And so if you click on 1840, it's going to actually bring you to a very strange resolution because it comes from an atlas, and this particular publisher, Jeremiah Greenleaf, was from Brattleboro. So it's bringing up the reason why is because it found Brattleboro in this particular atlas, imprint. So it's not going to be that helpful when we're looking for Brattleboro. So we're going to remove that. So we go up here and we can say remove on the left side, and that'll bring us back to our original. And if we can also, let's just do 1852, we can do that. And that brings us to the one map that is in the collection. And here's where we can look at the map a little bit larger. So we click on the map, and it brings the map up to a higher level. And here are controls on the left-hand side where you can do various things with it. You can basically expand the size of the map so it takes up the entire screen as it's done there. And you can make it smaller if you want. You can navigate with these tools as well. And so that's another way of looking at it. You can also just hover over it and enlarge it that way. So you get down to the specifics. So here is a property map that actually has the retreat grounds, and you can see we have some property owners here from 1852. If you're familiar with Brattleboro, you'll know some of these names, and that's one of the ways of viewing this particular map. Now, as I mentioned before, you can export the map, and when you do that, it will give you various sizes. And I don't know if you can see that drop-down menu, but you can download it as a small thumbnail, a medium thumbnail, large thumbnail, and you can go up to extra large of over 12,000 pixels. That's a big map. So if you wanted to print it out in a larger size, you'd be able to do that. Can also buy a print of the map from the David Rumsey collection. So so that's how Rumsey can do the map. Let's back out here. We'll go back over to the main part, and we can do a view the collection. Let's look at, let me go back to my notes here. We can look at we'll do a search on the Luna viewer, which will open up. So it gives you, first of all, a pretty much what the Luna viewer does, but you can actually launch that Luna viewer and you get to where we were. So that's another way of coming back to the collection. The other one we were going to look at here is the georeferencer. So as I said before, the georeferencer doesn't have all the maps georeferenced, but it has many of them. And we can look here and do another search for Brattleboro. And we did pick this one, which wasn't actually georeferenced, but this particular map, which is a map of Bennington and Brattleboro, which is interesting because in this side here you would have seen Bennington, but it actually includes Brattleboro. It is georeferenced, So we can view this and it will then superimpose the map. Did that work for people?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it, Jerry.
Okay, good. So at any rate, this takes this map of an earlier map and superimposes it on a contemporary map. So you can see how this could be very useful in terms of seeing where historic locations were. As you can see here, it shows the high school. Well, anybody familiar with Brattleboro knows that the high school is now the municipal center. But by taking the controls on the right, you can make this more transparent. So you can look then below that and see that the what was there then is and compared to what's there now. This is not such a good one because actually this particular contemporary map is historic now because the music center, which is right here, is no longer there anymore. It's moved to West Brattleboro and is now in across from Memorial Park. Obviously, the retreat is still there, and that's what's showing here. And it does not show the high school, which is now the municipal center. So they might have been able to use a better overlay for this particular example. So that's how the georeferencer. We can look at a little bit more of that later. So that was sort of showing a little bit how that the georeferencer works. And let's see, we did searching for find a map. So let's look at some of the facets. So we'll go back to here, and we can browse here by the facets. So here is the way that the maps have been indexed. In a way, it gives you the what, where, who, and when. And we can look at, scroll down this page here, and we can look at, let's look at railroads. So we have railroad and railroad survey. So you can click here on railroad, or we could have looked location as well and year. But if we start with this right here, we'll move into the various railroads. And here we can use we can start to delimit. We can use we use more. You get various cities here, and it goes beyond the where we want to go. So let's pick out. Let's do United States. And then if we do the United States, I think we can get to where I want to go here. Let's see. So we'll go down to Vermont. And here's a railroad map of Vermont. And this is a map from 1874. So this will give you the various rail lines in Vermont. There should be a legend on this map so you know what you're looking at. But these are the railroad lines in 1874. Now, we're probably looking at this right here.
Okay. I can't, this is where I wanted to go. I'm not sure what happened there, but I chose railroad and then 1830, which was the earliest one for the US. And this is a pretty neat map because it shows the earliest railroads and canals in 1830. And if you look over here, you can see the various. So this particular map shows, I'm trying to show so the canals are in this color of red, and the proposed canals are in yellow. The railroad is in this deeper color red, and this proposed is green. And it shows this particular railroad here in 1830, pretty early, the one that's going west through New York, out through the Midwest, down below Lake Erie, and out. So you can see how this would have been used for migration patterns by your ancestors early on. So, at any rate, that's what I wanted to show on this particular way, the way that you can use these facets. So let's see. The next one I wanted to show here were the statistical. So let's remove these and go back to the United States. Now, actually, we want to go, I think, back to the facets again. And if we look at, let's see, statistical. So what I did is I chose from the facets, the statistical facet with United States and Massachusetts. And this is a graph, and this is from the population census, and it shows the ratios of principal foreign and state nativities to the total population in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Boston. So that's why that map was given in that particular facet. And this is pretty cool because it shows you the various ethnicities living in that particular city. And you can see there's Vermont, so 1,613 from Vermont. Philadelphia, which is this has Massachusetts, and this is Chicago. And then you go down to Boston, and you can see many more Vermonters in Boston. But this gives you interesting insights into that. Okay, let's look at searching some of the other ways of searching here. I mentioned the search in text on maps, which is you click there, and we go by Vermont. You'll see how this will populate itself over time and give you all of the particular places where Vermont appears on a map. I'm not quite sure how helpful this is, but it's just kind of neat the way that it works. And if you hover over any one of these, it'll display the map that you have. So just kind of neat way of looking at the various maps. So let's look at the georeferencer in a little bit more detail. So this is the first page of the georeferencer. And then if you click on the georeference maps, come down to this incredible graphic. And these are the georeference maps by location, which is really kind of amazing. So if we pick, let's say, the United States, and where are we here? I get a lot of Russia here, but not. Okay, here we go. You can drill down, you keep drilling down, and each one of these dots is a map. And we'll focus in on the New England area here. And if we go over to where Vermont is, there are only a couple. And we got we have them up here further north. There's one in we have one in Rutland. So if you're actually, there are two in Rutland. If you go down to that area, you can actually get down to where that map is. The other one that was kind of interesting was one I just picked one in Keene. So it brings up a historic map of Keene, overlays it on a contemporary map, as I showed you on the other, and so you can drill down. This is a little bit more interesting because it's a larger map, and then you can use this to show a more contemporary map and the overlay. So as you can see, the particular map that is geo-referenced can be very helpful if there's a lot more than on the map itself. Okay, so let's see if there was anything else that I had in mind here. Oh, right. What's very helpful here is if you start using this collection a lot, you can register for an account and save the maps that you want. So I've registered for an account, and by doing that, you're able then to pick maps out and add them to a collection, which I've done, and it's called your Collections and Active Media Group. And I have a couple of maps of historic Italy that I've put into my active media group, so I don't have to redo the search. And as you can see, you can get lost very easily. So I have the maps here, and I can look at these by going to the actual group and seeing what they look like. So this is a particular map of Italy, Calabria, which was is actually a very old map made in 1620. And these are just for your own consideration. You can create presentations as well by using these maps, as long as you have an account. And there is a way to search for other maps in collections that people have created, which is kind of cool, because then you can explore the various maps in other people's collections. But so that's one of the other ways of using this powerful tool of David Rumsey. So let me see if that was all I was going to share with you folks. I think that's probably it. I think I'll stop the share now. And
Jerry, to make that account, is it a free account?
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep. And just create a password. And once you do that, then you're able to save your maps to whatever group that you can create, more than one group, and save those maps there. So it's very helpful, I think, to have your own account. And
Yeah.
they have an email list, so you can, the new enhancements, you'll get notified as well if you register. I think
That's amazing, this resource, Jerry.
it's a very dense, and I think it's very useful for your genealogist if you keep it on a level. Don't get too go down too many rabbit holes. I think it's really made for cartographers, serious cartographers who love maps. And yes, Tina asked, are the images copyright restricted? Some of them are. Most of them are free to use for personal use, but if you want to, use them for other means, you have to really take note of the copyright. And there is a section on the website that explains that. And Chip asks about specific towns, and he asks about Brattleboro, like the Sanborn fire maps, more detailed. They probably are, since those are behind a paywall normally. You need to probably use use a library or something that has that. Any that are in the public domain, I believe, would be available through David Rumsey, and that you would be searching for those through insurance maps, I believe, in the facets. Any more questions?
Why don't we, we had a couple questions that came up when people that registered. John Martin, I can read them off.
Okay.
Oh, are you here? Great.
The question I've asked, you've already answered online, but if you want to read out my question, I don't recall.
Well, you had about online sites for linking family trees do not always seem to be accurate or complete. Are some more accurate than others? And what role does DNA testing play in accurately tracing one's genealogy? I do a lot with other family trees online, but mainly what I'm looking for is to see what documents or what sources they've attached to the family tree that's online. So I put a lot more emphasis on ones, I mean, if they actually have images of, say, birth or death records or marriage records, it's a lot more trustworthy, if you will, that their that they've put some more effort into their website. There's a danger, I think, of people just copying and pasting. They find information online in one tree and they paste it into their tree, and that's a little dangerous in terms of the accuracy. What else? In terms of using DNA testing, the biggest use I've found for that is people who are also interested in genealogy. If they've taken a test and they also upload a family tree to the site, like say Ancestry or MyHeritage, one of those sites, it's a lot easier to see how you might be connected, and you can prove it both genetically by how closely related you are, and by genealogy, being able to find the paper record that shows how you're connected. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that really answers it. Is that the kind of thing you were getting at?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through the DNA testing, and I'll get the notifications of a third cousin twice removed or something and try to figure it out. Sometimes I do, sometimes I can't. And the other part to my question was, I've used some of the free ancestry sites, and most generally they appear to be very accurate from kind of independent sources or family history. Other times, like in one example, I kept tracing back and back and back one line, and finally came to the end. And it was one of those sites where I think any user could actually add to it. And it came to Adam and Eve. And I kind of lost my faith in that site
Yeah.
at that point. But generally, it seemed to be pretty accurate.
Yeah, I would say the farther back you go in time, the more problematic it becomes, especially if they went all the way back through the Bible.
Record availability, you're not going to find too many stone tablets, I think. Yes,
I guess the internet doesn't go back that far, does it?
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Well, it will shortly with all this AI stuff going on. Somebody will
well,
find a way to put it in there.
Wayne and I were just talking, Art, about an article in the Times a couple of weeks ago about how AI, AI can change the present and perhaps the future, with bad actors out there. And they're also concerned now about AI going into the past and changing documents, original documents, that, so you can't really trust the original document, which is the gold standard for genealogical research. That's another threat that AI poses. But yeah, all I would say about and Wayne covered it very well, is that when you are looking at these ancestral trees on Family Search or on Ancestry, that look for the documentation that if they're claiming that this person was born on a certain day or this person's a son or daughter of a certain family, look for the documentation, because there should be something there to document that that is true. And and we know there are all sorts of conflicts in records as you go along and do this research, and you have to resolve those conflicts before you can actually state that this is the fact. So
Yeah, the other thing I would add is with some of these crowdsourced trees, like the one I'm most familiar with is the one on Family Search. It's possible to come up. I mean, for one, you want to see what documentation they put in there. The other difficulty that comes up, though, is that a family could be really well documented, but the connection to the next generation might be wrong. I was doing some research going back in the early Massachusetts records, and somebody had put together, an entire branch of a family tree supposedly with this ancestor that I was researching, who lived in Charlestown, Massachusetts, and claimed that she had married somebody and had a lot of children with somebody, her husband was in the South, like Virginia, North Carolina, somewhere in that, probably Virginia. And, it was very extensively documented, but I think the entire thing was wrong. I found another record that the woman was married to somebody in Boston, not in Virginia. And there were some other comments that people had put in there. Some DNA testing had been done, and they were just skeptical about, the way that all those connections were made. So it's nice to find a site where somebody has done a lot of research and has been willing to post the discussion about what they found. Because if you can find multiple people, and especially, I mean, I have a lot of women's names were commonly used over and over again. So this happened to be like a Sarah Blanchard. So I mean, I have tons of Sarahs that, and I think somebody found another Sarah Blanchard and connected it to the wrong family, or that part may have been accurate, but it wasn't connected to the New England family. So there's that kind of stuff. And of course, finding multiple records is really the most useful thing, because even if you find a record that you think is solid, the people might have lied. I mean, there's my own grandparents lied about their ages to get married. So, if I went off their marriage record, I would get one date. If I went off their birth record, I had another date for when they were born. So there's that.
Kevin Brennan has a question. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks, Jerry. I'm a newbie here, so don't know whether you all address this kind of thing. And Wayne, some of your comments about lying and they resonate. There's a history in my family. But I wonder generally how you crack open an issue like what country currently is the place where my European ancestors were from? If records here in the States indicate that census records indicate that they came from Hungary, or they came from Austria, or they came from Prussia. Austria in the 1880s means a very different thing than Austria by 1920. People held on to an identification from apparently the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But how do you uncrack the possibility of whether family might be Slovakian rather than Hungarian, or Polish rather than German if they're Prussian? It just, that ends up being a bit of a brick wall. And I've been dabbling for years, but I'm only really getting started in some ways. And started by finding out that my Swedish heritage was actually Finnish.
Right. It's like what is this nationality? What, this
Right.
ethnic nationality?
And how does one access public records if they're state-based or country-based? You've got to figure out what country.
Right.
Currently.
Right. And so you're probably looking in several different, because of the boundary changes. So you probably
Right.
have several different, nation state, how they're done now. I would highly recommend Family Search Wiki and look at the countries there. It will give you good guidance on how to approach a genealogical problem of that particular country or in that ethnicity, and it will go into pretty good depth about the changes and where you would have to look. I don't know if you're familiar with FamilySearch.org.
I am, and that's where I've got a problem about someone having attached a record to the family tree that isn't
Okay, yeah,
as far as I know, which gets to Wayne's story. But I
Right.
have been on the wiki briefly.
yeah.
But I need to dive in and allow that the water's going to be cold, so to speak. So I'll just have to get used to it.
Right. It's a good question.
It's definitely more complicated in Europe. There were even looking at records of people, like even our U.S. Census records for people that came to this country. Probably the most accurate record is if they applied to become a naturalized citizen. That they would hopefully have listed there where they came from, by what town, what village, or whatever. But it's not always the case. I mean,
Right.
you do have a problem there. I mean, the same thing happens in this country. Just if you're doing any New England research, this book might help a lot. It gives you, it tells you where each of the towns in New England came from. I mean, when they were founded, and if they were split off from another town. So if you're looking for records, some of those records might be in the original town records versus the new town, the new split off town. But it's a good resource for any trying to track down New England ancestry.
Wayne, one thought I have is I did the 23andMe DNA, and it does point you as to where your DNA is theoretically originating from, and it might give some pointers as to probable locations that the majority of your DNA is from.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, that's a possibility.
Right. Wayne, didn't you mention that Roots Tech, there's going to be a session or two on ethnicity estimates?
I did find one. I don't have it right in front of me, but you can look, if you go to the Roots Tech site, there is somebody doing a presentation on that, trying to figure out the most reliable way to use those ethnicity estimates, because they do vary depending on which test you took and so forth. But I did run across that as I was going through trying to create my own list of things that I was interested in, and I do look at a lot of the DNA stuff. But anyway, you can find it in there if you search, go to the listing of all of the sessions on the online sessions, and then you should be able to find it there.
Yeah, I'll mention two names of oh yeah, Wayne, Chip would like you to put the title of the book in the chat.
Oh, okay.
There's Diane Southard, who is a genetic genealogist, very good, and Blaine Bettinger. I'll put their names in the chat. They do lots of video. Both of them are authors. Recommend. I'll put that in the chat as well. And she does great video presentations. Many of them are free on YouTube, or if you just subscribe to her channel.
Well, we're pretty much out of time.
Yeah. Anybody?
If anyone, we're aiming to do this again on May 18th. And if we have anybody else that would like to present something that they're working on, you could let us know.
No.
We would be happy to put you on.
Put you on stage. Okay, well, I guess that does it. We went through our our agenda, right?
I think we're there.
Okay. Looking forward to seeing people on Saturday, May 18th. And once we get this downloaded and edited, we'll upload it to our YouTube channel and send the links on to people. Okay. Guess I'll click the end button then. See you later. Thanks, Wayne.
Yep. Bye now. You too.